talk to you about the Philippines, and in particular about ending U.S. aid to the Duterte administration, which we believe is a fascist dictatorship. I'm also a member of Anak Bayan Portland, which is a Filipino youth activist organization.
And I'm also a member of People Organizing for Philippine Solidarity, which is non-Filipinos organizing for the Philippines.
Okay, so this is the Philippines. It is in, you can see like where it's located. It's to the south and east of China, kind of in the Pacific Ocean, right above Indonesia and Malaysia. So that's like a really important point because a lot of people, especially in the United States, may not know exactly where it's located and the richness of the land that it is on. So this is President Rodrigo Duterte, and this is his BFF, Donald Trump. And Donald Trump recently said the Philippines is the most prime piece of real estate from a military standpoint. So we'll go into what that means. So October, this month, is Filipino-American History Month. So this is what the U.S. looked like in 1947 with all of the colonies and the continental United States. So Alaska, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, the Philippines, and various other island nations. So colonization of the Philippines started in 1521 with the arrival of Magellan. He was subsequently beheaded, which is cool. But Spain continued to colonize the Philippines for over 350 years. At which point they had their revolution, and then Spain sold the Philippines to the United States in 1898. Then Japan occupied the Philippines very briefly for about 3 years during World War II, and then they gave the Philippines back to the United States in 1948, or in 1945, and in 1948 the U.S. granted the Philippines their independence. So the Philippines is very rich in resources, but its people are poor. There's a lot of gold, a lot of silver, and other rare minerals. The land is very rich. They grow a lot of rice, but its people literally live in trash heaps. There are families that live literally in trash dumps. Like, that is where their home is. It's really demoralizing. So the wealth of the land and its people goes to the U.S., to other foreign imperialist powers, and into the hands of a few rich Filipino families.
So when Duterte was elected, he promised to change that, promised to put all these other progressive people in government, promised to pass laws that would improve life for workers and farmers, promised to bring peace to the countryside. And instead, we got, what button do I press? Okay. Yeah, so instead he started a so-called war on drugs that's just led to around 30,000 people just being murdered by the police. He started putting the political opposition in jail and declaring martial law and implementing martial law across much of the country.
So something that's happened really recently is the institution of this Oplang Kapanatagan, which means Operation Stability. So Oplang Kapanatagan, the context for this is that Duterte broke his campaign promise of resolving the 50-year civil war through peace negotiations, and he actually escalated the tensions between the opposition. And Oplang Kapanatagan is a plan, and it's a whole-of-nation counterinsurgency program. That means it used fear and lies to essentially mobilize the entire nation against the insurgents. So that's really similar to the COINTELPRO program. So between January... and he does this protect himself and the landowners that he relies on for support. So between January and August of this year, at least 87 people, who were mostly just farmers, were killed by the agents of the military, essentially. There haven't really been a lot of answers to that, and Duterte has described this like happening in the island of Negros, which is right here, as a model of what he wants to do in the whole country. So 87 people were killed on Negros alone, and then he wants to expand that program to the entire country.
So Oplan Kapanatagan is based off of the U.S. military counterinsurgency manual, which is like a book you can go download. Every lesson the U.S. has learned in its many wars against the people are being concentrated in the Philippines today. So when you think about like the wars against Native Americans, the original Philippine-American War, the war in Vietnam, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, those lessons that the U.S. has learned are being applied in the Philippines right now against like ordinary people fighting for their rights. And then Duterte, and it's also similar to like what Netanyahu is doing in Palestine today, and you can also see Duterte being friendly with Netanyahu, who also sells him guns and intelligence supplies and that kind of thing. Oh, here's the book, the cover of it. So that's Oplan Kapanatagan is the Philippines government side of things, but also the U.S. military and government is in the Philippines also. Right now, that's happening under what's called Operation Pacific Eagle Philippines. So it's an expansion and escalation of direct U.S. military intervention in the Philippines over even where it was just a few years ago. It's technically called an overseas contingency operation, which is a category that exempts it from certain types of congressional oversight. So it's in the same kind of category as like the U.S. intervention in Syria. And then part of it is its stated goal is to assist counterterrorism operations against violent extremist organizations, like trade unions and indigenous peoples organizations and peasant organizations. And also advising and assisting ministry-level security officials, showing that it's not actually just Duterte, it's Duterte and the U.S. hand-in-hand doing these things. In 2018, it was at least $200 million or so in military aid, and then that also includes Boeing surveillance drones that, are actually being used to surveil rural communities. And so under this type of counterinsurgency, any dissension can be labeled as extreme or terrorist. No matter what you could think of, it can be called that. I won't give too many examples.
So a really sad example of this, and one that's literally close to home, is what happened to Brandon Lee. So he was born and raised in San Francisco, and he went to the Philippines on what we call an exposure trip in the early 2000s. He met a girl, and they have a family together. He has a 7-year-old daughter, and he's working as an environmental and indigenous rights activist in the Philippines as a paralegal and a journalist, so helping indigenous families not get swindled off their land by big corporations. And he was shot 4 times on August 6th of this year, in the back and the head, by agents of the military. And you can see his mom was on Democracy Now!, so if you want to look that up, that is a really good interview. Oh wow, we only have 1 minute left. Okay, yeah, he's still in critical condition after 8 cardiac arrests, and we would need money to get him home. So the U.S. won't fly him home because he's not important enough, and people are rallying to help save his life. So if you could please go to this GoFundMe link. It's also on the zines, which are on some of your chairs, and the link will be up on each of the successive slides.
So In the United States, Filipinos and allies are organizing to stop this rising fascism and the deteriorating human rights situation. So there's a group called the International Coalition of Human Rights in the Philippines, U.S. chapter. Here's all of us in D.C. Here's all of us in Vancouver when we officially launched it 2 years ago. And our organizations are a part of it, and we want DSA to work with it too. That's the short answer.
Yeah. So because of escalating human rights violations and the implementation of this new counterinsurgency operation, we want to invite all of you to the soft launch of the Philippine Solidarity Caucus, which is going to be just right across the street after the general meeting at Round Table Pizza. So yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be delicious. There will be other people from other organizations, from Anak Bayan and POPs, to talk to you all, since we don't know everything. But yeah, we'd just like to lead you in one last chant. So when I say Maki Baka, you say Huwag Matakot. So it goes, Maki Baka, Huwag Matakot, Huwag Matakot, Maki Baka. Maki Baka. Maki Baka. All right. Thank you all.